Are you a pilot that has flying buddies? Or an instructor that has students? Would you like to know more about the fear of flying and the excuses that come with it? And the responses you can give to those excuses to help someone with the fear of flying? Then stay tuned, because this episode and the entire series is for you. Hi, my name is Bas van Duin of Flight Coach. My mission? Helping you get more out of life and your flying career through having less stress and more skill. Welcome to this episode about the fear of flying and more specifically the excuses being used in that context. I was almost done editing this actual video and then I decided to re-record this intro because I noticed that I already have way over 50 subscribers while I only started the channel a week ago. I'm really happy with that. I'm stoked. I wanted to give you guys a big thumbs up. This episode is a follow-up to the previous episode, which was episode number 2 in this series about fear of flying, and it was called Symptoms and Signs. If you haven't watched that one before, I highly recommend you do. I'll leave a card right up here. Now, usually this is one of the most obvious signs if you know where to look for, and you will after watching this video. So I'm talking about excuses here that people use to not fly at all or to make their flight really short. In the past few years of teaching, I've seen two main reasons why people use these excuses. The first one is they're not ready to admit to themselves that they have a fear of flying. And the second one is that they're reluctant to admit it to others, usually out of a feeling of shame. Now, sometimes I know it can feel like a bit of a taboo, because flying is supposed to be fun, but it can't always be fun. In my experience, roughly 1/3 of pilots experience some form, and this is not just a guesstimate, this is from years of flying and teaching people how to fly and talking with a lot of pilots and a lot of instructors. For some reason it's just not a subject that a lot of people feel comfortable talking about, but I see this improving in the past few years, and that's one of the main reasons that I also decided to start this channel and this business, Flight Coach, to help people get over this fear of flying and to enjoy their flying more. So let's go over 3 excuses that in my experience cover the entire spectrum of excuses you might encounter. And for every excuse I will also provide you with a possible response to that excuse to hopefully help someone else realize that they're having a fear of flying, or when they're already in the phase that they realize that they have a fear of flying, maybe talking about it in this way can help you help them get over it. Excuse number 1. Yeah, I don't feel so good today. I guess I'm gonna stay on the ground. This is a very often heard excuse, usually at the beginning of the day. It's an excuse to not go fly at all. A proper response you can give to this is, oh, you must probably be feeling very sad that you can't fly. Now watch for what the person uttering this excuse responds with. It might be either a very enthusiastic response or a response that's more mellow. And the response that you get is going to tell you whether or not there is a fear of flying at stake. If it is a really enthusiastic, almost exaggeratedly sounding response, then it might be a cue that this person has a fear of flying. And a possible response that you might look for is, yeah, I really want to go fly. I can't go without flying. As opposed to a more mellow response like, yeah, I don't really care. There are enough days of flying. The second one, probably a very familiar one to most of you guys. It's been a beautiful day, you've been flying for hours, but you find one of your mates that has been on the landing for a few hours already. And he does this every day. And he always comes up with the same excuse, and the excuse is, ha, I flew for 30 minutes and it was great. Usually an excuse that you will hear after a flight. So this is someone who might have a fear of flying, and I can tell you in 99 out of 100 cases, this person will have a fear of flying. Because who in their right minds, who is enjoying this sport, with all these beautiful views, all these things to learn, would preferably, out of their own choice, land after 30 minutes. Now, I'm not talking about someone who can only fly for a few minutes here. I'm not talking about beginners. I'm talking about someone who actually has the skill to stay up longer, but decides to land early. So ask this person, what did you see? What did you enjoy most? And watch for the response. Someone who's really thoroughly enjoyed the flight but really decided to land early will tell you a lot of things that they saw and experienced. While someone that give themselves a time limit to at least fly for 30 minutes so they can at least tell everybody that they flew for a while, usually respond very startled to this question, like, what? Like usual, trees and birds. When you get this startled response, it's usually a cue. these conditions, they don't feel right. Usually an excuse you'll get just before the flight. Someone is already on the takeoff and is reluctant to take off or either unpack their gear completely. And I can tell you, I've been one of the people using this excuse when I had a fear of flying. More about that in a later episode, but this actually also is a very popular excuse. The fear creeps up to you while you're on the takeoff. You're just looking for a reason not to go because you're too scared. This pilot, you can ask, please tell me what you see. Please tell me what you're afraid of, what you think is going to happen. And let that person tell their story. Then you tell your own story, describing what you see, why you think it is safe to go fly. And then watch how they respond. Someone that does not have a fear of flying will want to listen to your story because they will want to go up in the air. So they will ask questions to better understand what point you're making. They tend to go along with your story and maybe have themselves convinced. While someone who has an actual fear of flying will just keep bouncing off everything you'll say. They'll just plainly ignore it, not respond to it, or counter it with different arguments, piling up more and more and more reasons not to go fly. So next time, after a day of flying, when you're sitting around with a bunch of pilots drinking your beer or having a cup of tea, if that's your thing, you know what cues to look for. And I hope you can get the conversation started on this subject. I'm really curious to hear what your experiences are. Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you like this content, consider subscribing and don't forget to press the bell icon so you get notified when my next video goes live.